Hi everybody, so today we're going to be looking at this tutorial called Glitches in Slit Scans. And to show what this visually looks like, it's like this glitching effect that can be achieved by using the program Touchdesigner on groups of people or environments and spaces such as this living room, and also objects such as this orchid. But first, to give a quick rundown of how this tutorial is going to look like, we're first going to start with the introduction to give a quick background of what slit scan photography is and some of the references that have been used to create this tutorial. And also, obviously, the video tutorial itself, done in Touchdesigner, and also discussing how you could take this project to the next level. So first we'll take a look at a little background information about what inspired this effect and some helpful references. Visually, this project was inspired by both slit scan photography, which you see on the left, and the early works of video artist pioneers Steina and Woody Vasulka, and their works naturally have a glitchy nature, which you can see in the example on the right. Slit photography has been a technique photographers, artists, and scientists alike have been fascinated by. It is able to almost stretch an eternity or a moment in time, making it a very useful tool for studying the dynamics of motion. The general gist of how this technique works is pretty simple. Vertical or horizontal strips of any width from a sequence of images, usually sequential frames from a movie or motion, are placed next to each other. By doing so, there are oftentimes skipped images or frames or a unique combination of the frames, which gives this modern-day scanner effect. Here's a visual diagram as well and some other examples of what slit scan photography looks like. And a little bit introduction about Steina and Woody Vasulka in general. Steina and Woody Vasulka were pioneers in video art, and their content stemmed mainly from video segments, documented the concerts and performances they attended at venues. And so a lot of their work was bridging both video, images, and sound. One work that has been a big inspiration for the making of this effect is Descends, where they manipulated synthesizers to create these glitch-like sound waves. Okay, so moving on towards the tutorial video, this is quite straightforward and simple, but I'm going to draw it out in a couple sections for clarity. And so the first step is we are going to be making a video file in, and this is what I'm circling right now. This would be the component used for the video device in and movie file in. And secondly, we would also be making like the slit scan effect, and this would be using geometry, camera, and lighting and rendering this. Um, and the third half would you'd be multiplying this and creating like a feedback loop. And ultimately, at the end, you would just be using levels and transformations to create the final output. And I also just wanted to mention that I followed two tutorials from Panic and Electronaut, which I will link in the bottom, that really helped me with this the creation of this tutorial, so definitely check theirs out if you're interested in any of the techniques that are used within this video. Alright, so let's first start by deleting all of this, all of our networks, and starting from scratch. And so, like I mentioned, the first part that we're going to be working on is the camera. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a video device in. Oops. And this is one option that you could use like your own camera. But I guess for this tutorial, we're actually going to be using the movie file in, so we could get in that GIF that I was showing in the beginning. And so we're putting a movie file in, and from here you could choose like a GIF or something that you want to use that has like motion. So for this case, I'm just going to choose one that I used in the tutorial, which is this orchid. And the way that I was able to get this 3D form was using this program called Scaniverse, which is easily downloadable on your iPhone, Android, which I'll also link below. But there's also some other couple resources that are quite useful, but just for this tutorial I'll be using the Scannerverse one, and you could export it as a GIF or a PLY file for Touchdesigner, which is really, really helpful. But enough about that. After you have your movie file in, you're going to want to put in a fit. And I'm putting in this fit because the size that I exported it was 1920 by 720, which was the size of what the file was originally. So that's why I'm putting in the fit. And afterwards, I'm just going to put it through a null, since we're going to be using it later. And now I'm just going to try to recreate those rectangles that were used in the glitchy effect, and so I'm just going to copy and paste this so I have 3 rectangles. And I'm going to make them different sizes, so maybe this one could be 0.1 and 1, so it's like a long rectangle. Maybe this one could be like the opposite and make it like 0.3, and maybe this one could be like 3, maybe 1.2, or how about 0.7? So it takes up not completely everything. And I'm going to put this in a comp so I could add all 3 shapes together. And I could do that from the operation and just make that an add. And I could adjust as needed. Like I see now that this is it doesn't look right. So I'm just going to make this maybe 0.3 to get the kind of glitchy shape that I want that we could use later. Oh, and these rectangles should be the same size as the fit. So what I can do is just copy the parameter and then paste the reference here, and I'm going to do that for all 3. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is actually supposed to be 1280. There we go. So now we get rid of the warning sign, and after this we're going to start making sort of the effect that we saw before. That's like that glitchy sort of like moving effect. And so you could either use that or you could use this that we just made. And I'll kind of show you like the difference of what they look, and maybe we don't even need this. But yeah, I'll just show you how to do the second part. Start making the second part, the glitchy kind of effect. And so we're gonna start with a grid, like a SOP grid, and we are going to put this through a null so that we could put it to a geometry later. Oops. And I'm just going to make a geometry, and with the geometry you also have to make the camera, also the light, and you also need a render top to pull everything together. Oops, that's not a render top. There we are. And let's actually make this grid a little bit more thinner, and so let's do around 0.2, and let's do 13 columns and 13 rows and 13 columns. And I don't think this is skinny enough, so let's make this 0.1 and 2. Seems about right. And let's connect this to the geometry. Oops. Okay, let's actually delete this geometry, and let's start by connecting it from the null. Maybe this one will work better. Yeah, there we go. And to get it to sort of move, we do need like a noise. So let's put down a noise. Oops. Yes. And that'll be a chop. And we'll need three of these squiggly channel lines, and so I'm just going to call them TX, TY, and TZ. And so we get 3 channels. And after putting down the 3 channels, we will need to change the noise. And so for the period, let's make it 0.4. And then let's make the roughness 0.5. Let's change the amplitude to 2.71 so that it's a little bit more condensed. And let's put a null so that we can connect it to something else later. Okay, and let's call this null instancing. And we're going to connect this to the geometry so that we can make the grid and everything move. And so I am going to drag this. Oops. Oh, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I am going to drag this into the default instance op in the instance section of the geometry. And so now that they're connected, to translate them, to make everything move, I'm going to put TX, TY, and TZ. So we're using the noise that's coming from this, and we're putting it here. It looks a little crazy right now, but let's adjust it so that it's a little bit more sparse. And let's actually make this like a little bit more sparse and make it move. And so to do that in the noise, we're going to go to constraints. Oh, sorry. We're going to go to transforms, and to make this move, we're going to put in the function abs time dot seconds. And you can see that it's starting to move a bit. And I think the times 0.1 is generally like a good speed to have, and so we're going to put it on times 1. And right now it seems like everything's kind of conglomerated and moving kind of slowly. So let's go to the channel and let's make the sample rate, let's say 30. Oops. Let's make it around 30. I think that still might be too much, so maybe let's try 5 or maybe 3. Yeah, that is perfect. And let's put the render through a null so we can multiply it with the camera that we created. And I'm just going to call this glitch. There we go. And so yeah, we actually don't need this section anymore, so I'll just keep it here, but instead of this, we will be using what we just created here. Okay, and now we're going to put the glitch and also the null into a multiply. And so we could connect the camera and also, or like the GIF and also the glitch effect. And so now you see how they're kind of combined, and you can kind of get how they're kind of separating. And next we're gonna put this into a comp, and we'll add alongside of it as we go. So I'm gonna put it kind of far. And let's put in a feedback. And what the feedback is gonna do is it's gonna create like that sort of like continuous like glitch effect. And so let's just put a feedback here. And we're going to connect that to a transform. Here we are. And we're going to add another comp. And we're going to connect this comp to, to the second comp, this. And for the transform, this is what's going to make the blurring effect. So I'm just going to make this -0.001 for now, but we can always test it out later once we put it into the feedback loop. And I'm actually going to put this multiply into the comp as well. See how we're getting this effect again. And the comp is actually going to go into the feedback loop so we can get that continuous effect right here. And yeah, we have like that sort of effect going on, and we can kind of change how everything looks with the transform. So maybe I'll make this 0.1 instead. Oops. And I will have to, in the second comp, you would have to have this one on top of the multiply, and the multiply on top of the transform. And yeah, after everything goes together, you'll see that this transform is creating like this blending effect, this like scanning effect. And when you connect that to the feedback, it creates this type of pattern that you see here. Yeah, and after this you're basically done, and all you have to do is maybe put in like a level and also a transform if you want to make any final changes to what the final outcome might look like. And so maybe you can make the colors more vibrant. You could turn the black level up and down, so maybe I'll make it 0.08, and yeah, you can make it lighter as well. Play with the brightness, and all this looks good to me. Well, yeah, I won't take up too much time playing with this, but you could definitely make it brighter or darker as you please. And if you want to make it smaller or larger, you could use the transform. Oops. Oh, got the S. Transform. Yeah. And if you want to make sure that you get a full black background, you can make the alpha 1 and make the comp over background color in case there's any open opacity areas where you might see just nothing. Yeah, and we're basically pretty much done. All you want to do now is put in null, so you could connect it to an out, and that way you would be able to put it in perform mode and see what it's going to look like. And so I'll just call this one scan because that's like the finished product. And if you just press this, you could see the display of what it looks like. Another way is to go up here on top of the palette, and you could press perform mode, and you can get the whole image. Yeah. And a way that we could take this to the next steps is, let's first disconnect this really fast. And what we can do is we could add like images or other GIFs or text over it, and so we could do that by adding the text and making a comp. And we're just gonna make them add on top of each other. And so we could take the scan and and we can make out a little blurry, but we could change the text here and make it like a poster and change like the font and everything. Yeah, so this one has, by doing this, you have like potential to make it into like a poster, like an interactive poster. Something else that you could also do is you could connect like another movie file in, and you could I will choose a photo. Yeah, you could add other images on top of it that are static, and so there's kind of like a blend of interactivity and also static images. And yeah, another thing you can also do is you can also add in another video on top of this one, so it's like double videos. So they can overlap each other. And these are just some of the things you can do. And obviously these don't look the best, but I'm sure you guys could think of better ways to make them look cooler. And you can also play around with the different operations within the comp. And you could also do preview grid so you could see all the possibilities and choose which one you think looks the best. Yeah, and that's it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll be sure to link down all the resources that I've used and all the tutorials that I've followed. And thank you so much for listening to the whole tutorial. This is my website in case you're interested in looking at any of my other works, which I'll also link on the bottom. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for getting to the end, guys.